Welcome to Math Plus, where math makes sense. Have you ever been told to find the lowest common denominator, the LCD, and then also told to find multiples? Did you wonder if they are the same thing? They are related, but they're not the same. Before I explain to you why you need to understand what a least common denominator and a multiple are, I want to explain what the difference is. Let's talk about the least common denominator first. The least common denominator is the smallest number that both denominators can go into. So we have our two fractions, and we need to find a common multiple, a small number that we can change that denominator to that they both go into. That's common. And I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. In other words, it's the smallest number they share in their multiples list. Actually, if it would help you, you could call it the least common multiple, and that might help you connect the two. The reason we call it the least common denominator, because that's what we're looking for. The least common multiple is the number that becomes the least common denominator. So those two in and of itself are the same. And you might want to write this down someplace as a reminder. Get yourself some index cards, write them down, and make yourself a little helper box. Put the index cards in a box, put them in alphabetical order, pull them out when you forget these things. But basically, the lowest common denominator, the LCD, is the smallest number that shows up on both multiple lists. Now let's look at multiple lists. What am I talking about? You remember when you were learning how to multiply, you had to count by twos or count by threes or count by fours. Those answers are your multiple list. So I made a multiple list of 4 and I made a multiple list of 6. So let's pretend we're going to go ahead and add 1/4. I always like to write them vertically, up and down, plus 2/6. We cannot add them because they're not the same size. They're cut differently. If you were to get a pizza and you ate 1/4 of it, and your dad came along and said, well, I want 2/6, it's going to be kind of hard to do that out of the same pizza. They're not the same size. They have to be cut the same way, the same size. So we have the multiples of 4 written out. I told you, you just count by 4s. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24. You should have those memorized. Multiples of 6, 6, 12, 18, 24. Now notice, you usually don't have to write very many to find common multiples, okay? But they both have a 24 and they both have a 12. Now, can you add these two fractions and convert them with a 24 as the least common denominator? Absolutely. But we want the smallest number. 24 wouldn't be the least common denominator. It would just be a common denominator. We want to work with small numbers. It's so much easier. So the least common multiple, 12, then becomes the least common denominator. So does that make sense? So we start out finding the multiple. These are common, right, for both of them. But then we're going to turn it into the denominator. That's all it is. They are, the least common multiple is what we use to make that least common denominator. So we're going to go over here and put a 12. And we'll put a 12 here. And then the only way you can change that to a 12 is to multiply this by 2. And then you have to multiply the top by 2. That's a 4. And you do the same thing with the 4. Now you remember, what 4 times what is 12? That's right, it's 3. And then we multiply the top by 3 as well. And our answer is 3 plus 4 is 7. And we just keep that denominator the same. And this is what I want you to remember and write down someplace. I use my least common multiple to find my least common denominator, right? That's what I did over here. I used my least common multiple and I entered it in over here as the least common denominator. So those two are working together and they come up with the same number. Let's do one more example. So the least common denominator is the smallest number that shows up on both multiple lists. Multiples are counting by. It's the answer when you're multiplying. Count by. So we're going to count by 9s because we need the lowest common denominator. We're looking for our lowest common multiple. We're going to count by 9s. We can go 9, 18. I'm only going to do 3 numbers, okay? 18 and 27. And then I'm going to count by 3s. That's my other denominator. And I want to find one that's common. 3, 6, 9, and 12. And if you keep going, you'll get 15 and then 18. So they have lots of common multiples because 9 is divisible by 3. So a lot of their multiples will be the same. So be very careful that you find the smallest multiple that's the same. And that's what we're going to take that 9, and now it becomes the least common denominator. Do you see how the lowest common multiple becomes the lowest common denominator? This one we did not change at the top, so we leave it alone. And the 3, we have to multiply it by 3 to get a 9. We're just making it 3 times bigger. And 2 times 3 is 6. Now we can add, because our denominators are the same, 6 plus 2 is 8. And our common denominator is 9. And that would be 8 9s. I have a video link above. You can go ahead and check that out where I go into more detail about exactly why we have to have a common denominator. I kind of explained it here, but I go into more detail with that video. So if that's still confusing to you, why do I have to do that? Make sure you watch that video. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and put some comments in the chat. We'd love to hear from you.